In the evening, Aries Coleridge returned. I came to the door to greet him, smiling and signing, "Welcome home, dear." Aries Coleridge didn't look at me, and walked straight over as if I didn't exist. I looked at his back and cursed silently in my heart. Blind. Can't see your father? Aries Coleridge's body stumbled. He stopped and looked back at me. I immediately smiled, and asked him in sign language, "What's wrong?" His eyes darkened. He looked me up and down, and said, "It's fine. My name is Cornell Jean, and I am the second lady of Jean's family. Because they are born unable to speak, they are also the least valued at home. 2 months ago, the Coleridge family was married to my family. My dad originally wanted to marry my sister to the Coleridge family. The elder sister also expressed her love for the young master of the Coleridge family with a shy face. Unexpectedly, the young master of the Coleridge family pointed to me in the corner and said expressionlessly, 'I want to marry her.' I didn't realize it at the time. When I turned my head, I saw my sister looking at me with hatred. On our wedding night, Aries Coleridge and I slept in separate rooms, but I wanted to go one step further with him. At 1 o'clock in the morning, I slipped quietly into Aries Coleridge's room. Who knows he wasn't asleep at all. In the darkness, Aries Coleridge's voice was low and menacing, "Get out." I was so startled that I almost collapsed on the floor. Aries Coleridge turns on the bedside lamp. In the dim light, his three-dimensional and deep facial features are hidden in light and shadow. I pointed at myself and pretended to be stupid. "Me." Aries Coleridge understood my gesture and replied, "Who else is here but you?" I stood up straight, straightened my back, and gestured to him in sign language. "I want to sleep with you." Aries Coleridge got out of bed and squeezed my face with her big hand. I didn't dare move. His incomparably cold voice rang in my ears. "I married you because you have a quiet personality and no other reason. Do not do such outrageous things." My surface, woo, scared the baby to death. My heart, hee. Dare next time. Aries Coleridge was really looking at the wrong person. The quiet personality is just what I pretend, and I am actually a backbone. The more Aries Coleridge doesn't allow it, the more I'm going to do it. I'm married to him. What's out of the ordinary? However, I can't be too and I just preview the various plots in my mind first. One day a week ago, I was dreaming as usual, when Aries Coleridge suddenly passed me. I suddenly felt weak. He tilted his body and hit his head on his chest. The souls in the body seemed to be shaken. Aries Coleridge held me steady. "Be careful." That's when I noticed that Aries Coleridge had changed. He became very irritable and would glare at me for no reason. I obviously didn't do anything. For example, in the morning, when we had dinner together, I glanced at Aries Coleridge. The buttons of his shirt are almost open. Sure enough, the pectoral muscles are a man's best dowry. Aries Coleridge's eyelids jumped, and she said, "Don't eat with me in the future." For example, when I help him change his clothes. Good waste. I just don't know the effect. Can you hold it for 2 seconds? Aries Coleridge snorted and put his coat back on. "Don't come into my cloakroom in the future. Net things. The old lady is too lazy to serve you." With a gentle expression, I gestured to him in sign language. "I see." I turned around and was about to leave, when Aries Coleridge grabbed me by the shoulders and pinned me into the corner. He lifted my chin and forced me to look directly at him, his deep, narrow eyes reflecting my appearance. "Cornell Jean." He called me by name. "Although you and I are husband and wife, you must also give me a sense of proportion." I blinked, and put on an innocent expression. But in his heart, he was saying wildly, "I really want to measure your proportions. You." He paused, not speaking. He let go of my hand and turned his back. "Forget it. You go out." That night, Aries Coleridge went home and went to take a shower. In order to end the life of clear soup and little water as soon as possible, I took out all his usual toiletries in advance. Aries Coleridge was halfway through the wash only to find that something was gone, and I was already at the door ready to go. In the bathroom, the heat is steaming, like a fairyland. There is also a good figure with broad shoulders and a narrow waist. A few droplets of water slowly trickled down Aries Coleridge's chest, white and large. There are also well-defined abs underneath. Aries Coleridge held out his hand to me, his voice hoarse. "Give it to me." I was so excited that I quickly took his hand. Aries Coleridge's wide palms exuded warmth. and the moist touch made my mouth dry. He took my hand back and slowly stroked his fingers upwards along my wrist. I swallowed. It's coming. It's finally coming. Aries Coleridge's voice came from above. Give me soap. Your uncle. I handed him the soap in my hand. Aries Coleridge then urged me to go. Get out. But I didn't listen to him. Aries Coleridge's sleek body made me unable to take my eyes off it. I glared and peeked brightly. He's so white. He should be pink. Sure enough, it's pink. Not bad. Not bad. I didn't even notice that Aries Coleridge's face was sinking and killing intent was flashing. I fantasize about his various poses. First this, then that, and finally this. Aries Coleridge frowned. He covered his body a little and said sharply, "You're not leaving." I twitched my brain, pointed to him underneath, and asked in sign language, "Can you shake it off, and show me?" Aries Coleridge was directly furious. He was so angry that he threw the soap in his hand directly at me. Get out. Thankfully, I was quick, or I would have died under that bar of soap. Because of that, Aries Coleridge avoided me for days on end. Such an awkward relationship lasted until the birthday banquet of the young master of the Grey family. On the day of the banquet, I entered with Aries Coleridge in the arm. Aries Coleridge instantly caught everyone's attention, and he was surrounded by all kinds of business people. I was pushed to the side. I don't know whose glass was not holding it steady, and the red wine spilled on my skirt, staining a large area. No one apologized. I'm often seen as heir, and I'm used to it. So a man went to the bathroom to wash his skirt. Grey's eldest lady, Edwin Grey, was also inside. She is dressed in a red dress and has a fierce face, much like the female ghost in the toilet ghost story. I had a bad premonition. 4 or 5 women with heavy makeup were blocking behind me, and one hand pushed me forward. Edwin Grey smiled and walked up to me and asked, "Cornell Jean, how are you doing? Does Aries Coleridge like you? It's your business." I turned around and wanted to leave. Edwin Grey grabbed me, pointed it in the face, and raised his hand to slap me. "Slut, dare you ignore me?" She grabbed me by the hair and slammed it against the toilet door. Suddenly, my head buzzed, and a burning pain came from my face. Edwin Grey leaned into my ear and said viciously, "Don't think you'll get Aries Coleridge's heart by pretending to be pathetic. He doesn't love you at all. He married you, just for a show." I opened my mouth and lips replied to her. "Stupid." "What did you say?" Edwin Grey commanded the others. "Get her in for me." Several girls pushed me into the toilet cubicle with their hands and blocked the door. The next moment, a bucket of cold water poured down from the partition. I was wet from head to toe, and there was a faint fishy smell. All around them was their shrill laughter. "Cornell Jean, we'll let you out if you beg for mercy." "How do you make her dumb? Beg for mercy. Otherwise, you can kneel." Ha ha ha. The laughter outside was louder. "I don't have a phone with me, so now I can only help myself." "That's fine." I calmly wiped the dirty water off my face, lifted my skirt, stepped on the toilet tank, climbed the partition, and came out of another compartment. "I've wanted to try mop for a long time. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity." I picked up the mop in the corner, dipped it in the toilet water, and slammed it. Seriously, the emperor didn't even get the rain and dew on me. The girls all lost their faces and hurriedly dodged. "Help, it's dirty. Stop her." "Cornell Jean, are you crazy?" I smiled evilly. "You're not talking nonsense. How can I do it if I'm not crazy?" After the feast, Edwin Grey sued the wicked first. She cried and told Aries Coleridge that I was bullying her with a stained mop. Woo woo. Aries Coleridge, "Cornell Jean, she's going to hit someone." Edwin Grey unfolded her stained skirt. "Look at my dress. She's made it like this." I stared at her contrived acting skills and pouted. "Act. Then act. It's a shame not to win a prize." Edwin Grey wiped away her non-existent tears and pretended to be pitiful. Before she could finish her sentence, Aries Coleridge skipped her and walked up to me, taking off her blazer and draping it over me. Aries Coleridge asked Edwin Grey rhetorically, "What did you say to her?" Edwin Grey was stunned. "What?" Aries Coleridge put his arm around my shoulders and said sternly, "Cornell Jean has a quiet and calm personality. You must have said something to irritate her, otherwise she wouldn't have done this. And she also has a wound on her face. Could it be that she hit herself? Apologize to her." Edwin Grey didn't argue anymore when he saw that Aries Coleridge was defending me like this. Her tone was very reluctant. Yes, no, Cornell Jean. I didn't expect Aries Coleridge to protect me like this. After Edwin Gray left, I smiled and thanked Aries Coleridge. Thank you. At the same time, an evil thought rose in my heart. I really want to hold you under my body, and thank you well. Aries Coleridge, _. He raised his hand to caress my face, but I was afraid of hurting me, so my fingers just stayed next to my cheek for a moment. Does it still hurt? Originally, there was nothing wrong, but when he asked, my sense of grievance came up. I bit my lip and tried desperately to hold back my tears. Don't cry. Don't cry. It doesn't hurt at all. It's not like I haven't been beaten before. I shook my head and said in sign language, it's okay. It doesn't hurt. Aries Coleridge straightened my hair and said, let's go home. In my memory, this was the first time he had been so gentle with me. That bucket of cold water managed to make me sick, but I'm still conscious. Lying bored in bed, Aries Coleridge came to my room, and tried my forehead with the back of his hand. It's still burning. I smiled softly at him. You go to bed. I'll burn even more later. Aries Coleridge's face suddenly became indescribable. He stood up. Just as I thought he was leaving, Aries Coleridge lifted the corners of the quilt, and lay gently on my side. Instinctively, I immediately moved away from him. Aries Coleridge frowned in displeasure when he saw me hiding from him. What are you hiding? I nervously asked him in sign language. What are you going to do? Aries Coleridge didn't answer. He pulled me back vigorously, and tucked the quilt over me, as if he was afraid that I would move. Commanded, close your eyes and sleep. I obediently closed my eyes, but my mind was thinking, what does he mean by this? Do you want to try me at 39 degrees? Wait, I won't die suddenly. As much as I wanted to taste the feeling of rolling the sheets, now that it was really coming, I was scared. There was silence all around. I squinted my eyes and opened a slit to see Aries Coleridge resting with her eyes closed. The sun shone on his face, making his whole face look clean and fresh. I could feel his even breathing. As he watched him distracted, Aries Coleridge suddenly opened his eyes. Sleep. I won't do anything. I breathed a sigh of relief and nodded obediently. It turns out that he really just sleeps. But fortunately he's not that beastly. Aries Coleridge put her arms around me tightly. I was relieved and fell asleep peacefully. Because of the fever, in the second half of the night, I broke out in a sweat. The slimy touch made me take off my pajamas in a daze. One rolled over and rolled into an embrace. This soft touch, wow, it's the pectoral muscles. I spread my hands and kneaded vigorously. The next second, I heard Aries Coleridge's dreamy cry. Tap. It. I snapped my eyes open and sat up. Aries Coleridge shuddered. His arm wrapped around my back, and he whispered, what's wrong? I'm wearing only a pair of panties all over my body, and I'm shaking, screaming inwardly, ah. Aries Coleridge hurriedly turned on the light, and looked at me in his arms. I pushed him away, and wrapped myself in the covers. Aries Coleridge leaned over. What's wrong with you? What's uncomfortable? I shook my head frantically and leaned back. I pointed to the door and motioned for him to go out. Hurry up, hurry up. Aries Coleridge stared at me and sneered. You're driving me away. What about the courage to shake me off at that time? TSK. Looking at the pink and tender, I still hold a grudge. My face was burning hot, and my head was dizzy. At this point, I can only give in. I pretended to be pitiful, and compared it to painting sign language. I'm very sick now. And if I infect you, it's not good, so you'd better go out first. Aries Coleridge looked at me in silence. Why didn't he react? Could it be that you didn't understand the gesture I just made? I slowly drew him again. I see, he said. Aries Coleridge got up and walked out of the room. Can't I go? Why do you sound aggrieved? My parents heard that I was sick, and came to visit me at the Coleridge house. After a few polite words, they asked me about my married life. My mom took my hand and said earnestly, Cornell Jean, how are you doing with Aries Coleridge? If you are not happy, it is better to divorce as soon as possible. My dad nodded in agreement. Yes, your sister has always liked Aries Coleridge, and she's better suited to that role than you are. Go home and don't disgrace Aries Coleridge again. The couple sang and reconciled, and they pushed me to divorce Aries Coleridge. I knew they weren't really coming to see me. I shook my head and refused with sign language. I don't want a divorce. I haven't slept with Aries Coleridge yet, So how can I get a divorce first? When they saw that I refused, they immediately changed their faces. My dad pointed at my nose and scolded, "You don't want to. It's not your turn to call the shots in this marriage. If it weren't for Aries Coleridge's penchant for quiet, would you be where you are today? I still insist. I will not leave." My dad gritted his teeth. Seeing that I didn't give in, they turned around and went back to the study to talk to Aries Coleridge about it. I crept to the door and eavesdropped. Inside, Aries Coleridge didn't answer for a long time, and my heart became more and more uncertain. He didn't like me either, so what if he really wanted to leave? Not to mention that I often harassed him. After a few moments, I finally heard Aries Coleridge's voice. He calmly said, "Cornell, Jean and I are very happy, and we are not thinking about divorce." This answer froze me. Happiness? Who is it? Turns out Aries Coleridge feels happy to be harassed by me. My parents are still persuading me. Aries Coleridge, you see that our little daughter can't speak. How ruining your image is. And she's not upset. I've heard she offended Edwin Gray a while ago. She's sure she doesn't think she's worthy of you. And I didn't listen any further, and went back to my bedroom to wait for the results. About half an hour later, Aries Coleridge came to my room in a rage, and the first thing she said was, "Cornell, Jean, you want to divorce me? How? Are you still angry?" I was amazed to see Aries Coleridge in such a hurry, and I wanted to tease him on a whim. "Since you don't like me, then I don't want to delay you. Let's get together and disperse. It doesn't matter in my heart. Leave and leave. He can't eat this piece of meat, so I'll go find someone else." Aries Coleridge glared at me for a moment, gritted his teeth, and said, "You still want to sleep with me before? Try your best to get close to me, and get tired of it so quickly." That's right, I am such a person who likes the new and hates the old. I squeezed out tears and gestured, "I'm sorry." Aries Coleridge raised an eyebrow and smiled. "Good, then." He shook his face and walked away. "You wait for me." Joke. I'm waiting for you when I watched the film Fast Forward. Before the divorce, I decided to give it one last time. Inside the bar, the lights are bright and green, and the voices are buzzing. I leaned in front of the bar, squinting in search of prey. This doesn't work. It's too thin. This is not good. Looking at kidney deficiency. That's okay, but it's a little bit different. Ever since I met Aries Coleridge, I've found that I've seen people a lot higher. After searching for a long time to no avail, I immerse myself in a drink. A tall man with a wine glass came over and said, "Hi, young lady." I fixed my eyes on it. Should I say it or not? It's pretty handsome. He looks a little like Aries Coleridge, and he is in good shape. He smiled and asked, "Are you alone?" I was slightly drunk and nodded. The man sat down next to me, and kept some distance from me. "I see that you have drunk a lot, young lady. Do you want to help you get a car home?" I waved my hand. "Actually, I want to drink it a little longer." Handsome guy. "Don't talk to her. She won't answer." A sweet, high-pitched female voice rang in my ears. Edwin Gray twisted his waist and walked over to the man. "She's really haunted." The man asked her, "Why?" Edwin Gray glanced at me and deliberately said loudly, "Because she can't speak. She's mute." I grabbed my glass and prepared to change places. "Hey, don't go." Edwin Gray stopped me. "I haven't settled accounts with you about the last time." I rolled my eyes. Yu Guang swept into a familiar figure. She was sitting upright on the couch, looking at me with a playful expression. "That's my sister Justin Jean. My sister has been looking at me unpleasantly since I was a child. She didn't do anything to me, though, but when I was bullied by others, she never helped me. She just acquiesced, and then watched coldly. On the day of the wedding, I was subjected to cynicism in the lounge. Some people have done things to me, ripped my wedding dress, and messed up my hair." Justin Jean didn't say a word. She blocked the doorway, a cigarette between her fingers, and smoked slowly. Every time I see her like this, I feel chills in my heart, and even shiver all over. "Cornell, Jean." Edwin Gray's voice brought me back to my senses. She looked down at me condescendingly, her eyes full of contempt. She taunted, "Were you kicked out of your house by Aries Coleridge, and have nowhere to go?" The tall man stood in front of me. "Don't talk about her like that." Edwin Gray nudged him. "I can say whatever I like. What's your business?" I pushed it back hard and slapped her in the face. Smack! Edwin Gray's arrogance vanished in an instant. She covered her red and swollen face and glared at me angrily. You dare to hit me? This slap is for you again. I left the bar with the tall man, and at the same time out of Justin Jean's sight. Strangely, Edwin Gray didn't catch up. In a corner of the bar, I typed on my phone to thank the man. Thank you just now. His man smiled shyly when he saw the text on the phone screen. Nothing. You're welcome. He introduced himself. My name is Carrie Freeman. My name is Cornell Jean. At this time, I felt the strength of the wine come up. The world was spinning in front of me, and there was a burning sensation in my throat and stomach. I staggered to get ready to go home. Carrie Freeman stepped forward to hold me up, and thoughtfully said, I'll give it to you. I remembered Aries Coleridge's foul temper, and I was about to ask questions, and I was about to say no. Carrie Freeman took my shoulders, and almost took me into his arms. Suddenly, a strong arm separated me from him. I looked up and saw Aries Coleridge's angry face. Aries Coleridge grabbed my wrist and pulled me over, his voice suppressing anger. Cornell Jean, you're so daring. Hey, I'm going to die. Carrie Freeman also wanted to tear us apart. He asked Aries Coleridge, who are you? Aries Coleridge threw him a stab in the eye and replied coldly, I'm her husband. Then Aries Coleridge didn't talk any more nonsense, dragged me and left. Aries Coleridge strides forward. I was dragged by him, staggering all the way. In addition, after drinking, his legs did not obey him. I cursed in my heart, Is there any work in the field? Aries Coleridge stopped. I didn't have time to react and hit him headfirst on the back. Aries Coleridge turned, bent over, picked me up, and threw me into the car. It was a little wet and cold in the car, and I shivered. Aries Coleridge pressed up, pinched my face, and asked, before I'm fully cured, run me out for a drink. Who's that man? Hey, you dare to go out on my back to find someone? This litany of questions annoyed me. The wine is strong and courageous, and I vented all the grievances I had accumulated. I didn't bother to compare the sign language, so I threw my fist at him. I want you to care. You have to take care of it. Every time I look for you, let me go, and don't let me go out by myself. As I played, tears welled up in my eyes. Aries Coleridge didn't resist, letting my fists fall on him. After playing for a while, I was tired. The body curled up in a ball, covering his face and sobbing softly. Aries Coleridge put his coat over me, and he returned to the driver's seat and started the car. When I got home, Aries Coleridge wrapped me in my clothes and carried me from the car to my bedroom. In bed, I closed my eyes and pretended to be dead, secretly thinking about the plan in my heart. I will pretend to drink the fragments tomorrow, and I don't remember anything. When he asked something, I said I didn't know. I'm a clever little ghost. I waited quietly for Aries Coleridge to leave, but instead of leaving, Aries Coleridge opened my eyelids with his finger and said, don't pretend. I know you're not asleep. Bye. How did he find out? I brushed his hand away and sat up awkwardly. You're smiling crookedly. Aries Coleridge snorted coldly, his tone a little smug. You want to pretend to drink the splinters, don't you? I quickly shook my head and quibbled in sign language. No, I just really fell asleep. Aries Coleridge looked incredulous. He sat on the edge of the bed and asked with a straight face, explain. Who is that man? His name is Carrie Freeman. I haven't known him for 5 minutes, and I've been drinking before. Really, he's just a passerby. Aries Coleridge breathed a sigh of relief when I replied, don't go out to drink until you're sick. I nodded obediently, and I was relieved. Scared me to death. I thought he was going to beat me. Aries Coleridge suddenly, TSK. How could I? I was stunned and asked, what? He looked away and touched his nose. Nothing. After that night, I found out that Aries Coleridge had changed again. He became a bit of a talker, always talking to me. On this day, Aries Coleridge came home from work. I habitually came to the door to greet him, and said in sign language, you are back. HMM. This time, instead of ignoring me, Aries Coleridge stopped and chatted with me. It's so hot today. It was pretty cool a few days ago, but it's getting really fast. I smiled dryly and nodded in agreement. Take off your clothes when it's hot, and talk nonsense to me. Aries Coleridge glanced at me and unbuttoned a few shirts. 2 white pectoral muscles are about to come out. I was instantly intrigued. Whoa, pectoral muscles. The corners of Aries Coleridge's mouth seemed to curl up for a moment. He even tugged at his collar and pulled it out, revealing more. Hiss. It felt like he was scheming, but forget it. As long as he's willing to put his mind to me. Aries Coleridge smiled, her voice seductive. I'm going to take a shower later. Can we? If it were me before, I would definitely be eager to agree. But now, I hesitated. His gentle smile gave me goosebumps. I waved my hand. No, Aries Coleridge asked defiantly, seeing that I refused. Scared. Why did you become less daring? Scared. How can it be? Who are you scaring about? I was in a hurry, gritted my teeth, and nodded in agreement. I walked into the bathroom in a bathrobe. Aries Coleridge had been waiting inside for a long time. When he saw me, a grim smile flashed across the corner of his mouth. Are you still showering and getting dressed? I pretended to fight. I'm a little cold. It'll be hot later. Aries Coleridge stared at my face and raised an eyebrow. It should still burn. I think I've heard this somewhere. Aries Coleridge stepped in front of me, his tall figure covering me in the shadows. I wilted instantly. If you want, or forget it. Just as I was about to step back, Aries Coleridge put his arm around my waist. No escape. I don't know if it's my delusion. He seems to be trembling too. Relax, he reassured. Aries Coleridge lowered her head, heavy breathing passing through my neck. He stroked my lips and kissed me gently. It's soft, very comfortable. However, he also kissed for too long. I choked a little and patted him on the shoulder, motioning for a pause. As a result, Aries Coleridge was even more energetic. Taking a moment to catch his breath, he chuckled. Let's try the effect. Then, one hand ripped off my bathrobe. The night passed. To be honest, the experience was not very good. Aries Coleridge is not gentle at all, only using brute force and going on a rampage without technique. After many shocks, I couldn't hold it anymore, and fell asleep. It wasn't until 3 o'clock in the afternoon the next day that I woke up in a daze. When I looked down, there were countless red marks all over my body, and the slightest movement hurt terribly. Aries Coleridge didn't go to work today. He came into the room with a plate, and when he saw that I was awake, he asked gently, "Did you sleep well?" What a fart! I followed the example of Aries Coleridge and put on a fierce expression. Aries Coleridge seemed frightened. Her body paused, and her voice trembled. Would you like something to eat? I turned my head and ignored him. Tossed me so desperately last night, but now it's gentle. 2 faces on the bed and under the bed. Aries Coleridge poked my arm. Cornell Jean, don't be angry. I didn't restrain myself. I'll be careful next time. I ignored him, and he kept poking. I gave him an impatient look. Don't pull your father. Aries Coleridge hung his head and whispered, Honey, how can you forgive me? Aries Coleridge would have such a low voice. I couldn't help but be proud, and proudly compared sign language. You lie on the bed and turn the hula hoop for me. Aries Coleridge. How do you turn around while lying in bed? I looked preachy and pointed. That's your own problem. It's that you don't work hard enough. If you don't turn around, I won't forgive you. Word. I ignored Aries Coleridge for days, and I turned my face away as soon as he came over. Gradually, Aries Coleridge stopped talking to me. My sister, Justin Jean, is ready to officially take over our family's business. On the day of the ceremony, Aries Coleridge was unable to come with me for a short time, so I went to the appointment alone. In the ballroom, Justin Jean and my parents stood together, chatting and laughing with the guests, and no one cared about me. It doesn't matter. There's never been a place for me there anyway. In the crowd, I saw a familiar face. He saw me at the same time. Carrie Freeman came up to me and greeted me with a smile. What a coincidence. We met again. I nodded. Yes. Carrie Freeman's gaze suddenly focused on my neck. His smile faded and his face turned pale. I guess he probably saw the traces left by Aries Coleridge before. I raised my hand to cover it, and looked for something else to talk about. It's so hot today. Carrie Freeman's expression was lively again, and his eyes flashed with agility. Let's have a drink. He handed me a glass of orange juice. Although it was a bit troublesome to talk to, we talked for a long time. Before you know it, it's getting dark. The phone prompt sounds. It's Aries Coleridge. He asked me, not going home yet. What to urge? I replied, I'll be back later. I have something else to do. Aries Coleridge sent another message. Hurry home, when you're done. I'm waiting in bed to turn you on a hula hoop. Hula hoop. I waved goodbye to Carrie Freeman. I'm sorry. I have something urgent to go home first. Carrie Freeman grabbed me. Wait. I have something to tell you. I asked him. What do you want to say? Carrie Freeman looked nervous. He didn't dare to look at me. And he said, Cornell Jean, I like you. I was stunned and typed to tell him, I have a husband. It's okay for me to be a third party. Carrie Freeman excitedly said, I'd do anything as long as I could be with you. Neuropathy. I didn't say too much, and comforted him, we are not suitable. You will meet better people. The scene was so awkward that I trotted away in a hurry. Just as I was about to turn the corner, Carrie Freeman suddenly stood in front of me. He cupped my face and lowered his head to bite my lip. I panicked. Both hands struggled, but his strength was so great that I was held down firmly. Carrie Freeman rudely ripped my clothes open and reached in. He fell in my ear and said, I really like you. It's so disgusting. I want to throw up. I adjusted my position, lifted my legs, and slammed my knees into his crotch. Carrie Freeman gasped in pain. You slut. I took the opportunity to break free, and gave him another punch before running away. I ran to the bathroom in one go, and only after observing left and right that no one was there was anyone before I was completely relaxed. The clothes on his body had been torn, and there were bruise and purple scars on his wrists, and his lips were still bleeding. Just in case, I took pictures of my clothes and scars. When I returned to the banquet hall, there was a sigh of embarrassment. I looked up. The big screen in the hall showed a picture of Carrie Freeman, when he had just forced me. In the photo, I'm being pressed against the wall and kissed by Carrie Freeman. It's obviously a candid angle. For a time, there were different opinions and rumors. Say I'm cheating, and raising a mistress. I shook my head desperately in denial, but no one believed me, including my parents. They insulted me in public and tried to dissociate themselves from me. You stinking shameless. You dare to green Aries Coleridge. It's been raising you for so many years. Tears were already rolling in my eyes. Suddenly, I met Justine Jean's gaze. Her eyes were peering over the crowd to me. I couldn't help but be surprised. Justine Jean smiled sharply. She opened her lips. You deserve it. At this moment, I couldn't control my emotions anymore. My legs went limp, and I almost fainted. I wiped my tears, held my body, and fled from this place of right and wrong. I rushed home non-stop and rushed into Aries Coleridge's bedroom. Aries Coleridge was sitting on the bed staring at his phone, his expression solemn, and he already knew it. Before I could say anything, Aries Coleridge calmly said, I believe in you, but I was very anxious, crying, and using sign language to draw. I don't. It's not what they say. I know. Aries Coleridge gently wiped away my tears. Tell me in your heart what you want to say. I can hear you. I'm blind. Hey, can you hear me? He nodded. Yes, I can hear me. Hula hoop. Aries Coleridge helplessly held his forehead. I'll turn it for you later. I've been practicing for a long time. No way. He can really hear me. I stopped my tears and pinched my fingers weakly. Yes, I heard them all. Alas. I sighed and spread my hands. Forget it. Anyway, I have a virtue inside and out. Aries Coleridge looked at me amusedly. You have a clear idea of yourself. I told Aries Coleridge about what Carrie Freeman had done to me, and Aries Coleridge's grumpy temper almost came out of the door to confront someone. It took me a lot of effort to hold him back. After discussion, we decided to call the police. It didn't take long for Carrie Freeman to be caught. He was interrogated by the police, trembling and confessing. It turned out that he was sent by Justine Jean and Edwin Gray to deal with me. However, I wasn't as attracted to Carrie Freeman as I had planned, so he simply went for it. Justine Jean displayed the candid photos in the hall in order to ruin my reputation. At the police station, I calmly handed over the photos of the molested person to the police. Conclusive. Carrie Freeman was criminally detained. Justine Jean and Edwin Gray were also punished. Later in the family dinner, Aries Coleridge took me by the hand and kissed me on the cheek in public, to which was greeted with applause. It ended on a happy note. I can't turn. Aries Coleridge collapsed on the bed, hula hoop hanging from his waist. I stood beside the bed and sternly urged, there are still 50 laps. Hurry up. Aries Coleridge closed his eyes in despair and said pitifully, let me rest for a while. Okay. He panted with his mouth open and stuck his tongue out slightly like a puppy. It looks very pro. I couldn't help but kiss him on the corner of the mouth. Aries Coleridge curled the corners of her mouth, as if she had expected it. He opened his eyes and asked, "Why kiss me?" I pretended to be cold, itchy mouth. He pulled me onto the bed. "Then I'm itching too. You can help me." Grandma's. He couldn't turn a few hula hoops. And now suddenly it looked like a perpetual motion machine. I grabbed Aries Coleridge's hair, gasping and scolding. "You're kidney deficient sooner or later. You have the ability to kill me." "Well, keep scolding." Aries Coleridge was in a steady mood, and said with a smile in his tone, "Scold. 10 times. Me." Justin Jean has been on a downward spiral since he became chairman. She has always been arrogant and disdainful of small and medium-sized enterprises, and only wants to talk about working with Aries Coleridge's company. Aries Coleridge was clear that it couldn't be, but Justin Jean wasn't giving up. She herself was addicted to gambling and was in debt, because the money was in arrears for too long. The creditors came to the door in person and made a fuss in the company. Justin Jean intervened to persuade him, but was forced to kneel by them. There were a lot of people gathered around to watch the excitement, but no one went to help her. Justin Jean had to kneel down before them, and kowtow 3 more times before the creditors left. The crowd dispersed. I slipped up to her and asked with concern, "Sister, is it nice to be watched by people coldly?" As soon as Justin Jean saw that it was me, he immediately changed to that indifferent look. She stood up and asked, "Cornell Jean, you've been looking forward to this day for a long time, haven't you?" I pursed my lips innocently. "I didn't look forward to it, but you did it all yourself. I didn't interfere." "Don't be complacent. You'll go through it sooner or later." I'm still smiling. "No, it won't. My husband is not like you. He is quite good at business, and he loves me very much." Justin Jean seemed choked. Her cold expression relaxed. Her facial features wrinkled together, and she cried very ugly. I stepped back in disgust. "Sister, don't cry. Hurry up and earn money, and strive to pay off the debt in your lifetime. I will never help you." When I was done, I turned and left. Jean's family has nothing to do with me anymore. Aries Coleridge was waiting for me not far away. He saw me coming and skillfully took my hand. "Let's go on a trip. We haven't hung out together since we got married." I punched him in the chest. "You're embarrassed to say. At the beginning, let me roll at every turn." Aries Coleridge rubbed where she had been beaten and leaned her head down on my shoulder. "I was wrong, dear. I shouldn't have been that fierce. So where are we going to play? You decide. I'll listen to you." I am very satisfied with this answer. I grabbed his arm and shook it. "That's pretty much it. The oncoming wind is a little chilly, but I don't feel cold." My hands were clenched tightly by Aries Coleridge, and the warmth was being transmitted to me. The end.